I'm no woodworking expert, I'm no craftsman, I'm no amazing person at this kind of stuff. So just remember, if I can do it, I'm sure you can do it. And if I can't do it, I'm still probably sure you can do it. But we'll find out if this is any good. So let's get started. I imagine if I posted it to YouTube, I accomplished something here. Now we're going to start this with a little bit of a disclaimer, and what I want to say is, yeah, for about 28 bucks you can get the raw materials to build the basic version of this screen, which we're going to do in 3 parts, because the basic version is pretty much by itself going to be what we build. That's building the screen, putting the actual screen, the Carl's Place material I got on there. I'll put links to all of that down below, and just building that, and that's about as simple as it gets. Now we start spending more money when we do things like paint it, which we will be painting it. We put a border on it, which we will put a border on it. I'm not going to do like a matte black. I'm going to do a real felt border on it, and I'll explain why later. But part of the problem with when people see like, oh, $26, and then you watch that video, because I know I have, and I'm sure you have too. You watch that video and then you see that, oh yeah, but he's got like, you know, a $400 DeWalt miter saw, and he's got, you know, a CNC machine, and he's got all this fancy stuff. Yeah, it's $26 plus the cost of that stuff if you don't have it. I totally get that. There's no real exception here, because I'm going to be using tools that I have in order to do this. There's always better tools that I don't have that would have made it even easier. But I am going to tell you that you can do this and purchase simple tools. Something I had told Laura a while ago was, I really want a miter saw. I want a nice miter saw that I could do some cuts with. So what did she do? She went to the grocery store and she bought me a miter saw. You're probably looking at that if you've never seen one of these before, being like, that's not a miter saw. It is. It's an $8 miter saw. It's a little plastic box. It has all the angles for the saw to go in, so you can make all your cuts. I did the framing of the entire bar with that miter saw. It works. It takes a little bit more time, but it was $8. So if you don't have the $100 to buy the battery operated Ryobi miter saw that I have here, then get something cheap and work like that. Same thing with drills. You've got little push drills that you can do that'll drill the hole for you. There might be some things that you want to get for this that would just be beneficial to you to have it over other things that would be less beneficial to you. But this can be accomplished pretty cheap, and we'll go over the price of the cheap tools if you don't already have something a little better, a little more heavy duty to work with. Now I'm not here to give you a math lesson either, so we're going to skip that. I'm actually going to put the math lesson down below in the link if you want to go click it to see what kind of measurements you might want for different size screens. I'm doing an 80-inch diagonal screen. I have that measured, and we'll go over that here shortly. So we talked a little bit about cheap tools, and just to touch on that real quick before we move on too much, I don't want to leave you high and dry. Push drills, and they basically look like a screwdriver. You can get them on Amazon for about $12. You'll be able to mark your spots and drill your hole by pushing down. Yeah, I did that. The next thing you have is the miter saw I showed you. It's somewhere between $8 and $15 depending on where you get it. And when I said grocery store, yeah, she went to the grocery store and found it. So you might be looking at about $20, $30 extra for some additional little tools. If you're not going with things like the pocket hole jig like I'm doing, then you can do things like mark your spots and get T-brackets for your middle support, whether you do 1 middle support or 2 like I did. L-brackets for your corners will help hold the frame together that way. If you don't do the pocket hole jig, you can put L-brackets on the back and screw them in, and that might work best for you if you're on the most extreme budget with no extra tools, but you want to invest a little bit of money in tools to do that. Otherwise, I'll link what I use down below. It's actually very reasonably priced and high quality Ryobi stuff, which I love. I can't believe that this, you know, 1+ battery operated miter saw has tackled just about everything I've thrown at it. Pretty impressed with that. If you use L brackets and T brackets, don't use anything bigger than a 1/2 inch. What I used when I was doing the pocket holes was 3/4 inch, but if you try to put that through this 1x3, then you're going to poke through on the other side and probably be a little bit sad. Making all your measurements and your cuts is probably the most important thing to building the frame. You want to make sure that you have a nice even frame. You'll do your measurements and then you'll mark with an X on the side that you'll be cutting on. Just do keep in mind that these 1x3s are actually 2.5 inches long and not 3 inches long. So you'll be accounting for that in your math for the height of the screen itself as well, taking about 5 inches off what your total height should be. When you measure down on the line, we put an X so that we know that that's going to be the blade side to keep it as even as possible. The blade width will account right there, and that'll be our scrap piece that we're not going to use. We'll do that, we'll pull down on the blade, and we'll cut the scrap side off, and this will hopefully generate a nice even cut of the exact measurement that we wanted. Once we've done that, we're going to flip it around. We're going to do the other side now. Doing the same process. We make the mark, we put the X, and then we're going to put it back on the saw and cut the same way, making sure that the blade side is on the X side of our cut. Whether you use a miter saw or you use the pretty plastic box, if you take that recommendation, this same method should be applied. Once you've done that, make sure they're as even as possible because you don't want one side taller than the other. And if you need to go back and cut again, then you can cut again. Always measure twice, cut once. Once we've completed that cut, we move on and we start doing the other parts of the cut, the side. I took off 5 inches on each side because they're 2.5 inches width, as you can see right here as I lined it up just to test out the screen. This was actually the wrong measurement size. I had to go back and cut it a little shorter. But once we have all our cuts ready, we'll do our pocket holes. Putting a pocket hole jig on the end is a pretty simple method right here. We will drill through and make sure that we have 2 pocket holes on every vertical piece of wood. So not your top and bottom supports, but just your height sides and your middle support. Once it's been connected, it's nice and solid and sturdy frame, and it's put together well, and we're ready to move on to the screen. So you can maybe tell that it's almost Christmas time. Now, we finished putting the frame together, which I can tell you right now, using that $1.46 cheaper wood rather than using something that was like $2 or $3, it's noticeable. You'll probably notice the difference. It's not the most perfect wood to work with, but as long as we brace it right, I think it makes a more than adequate frame. This is supposed to be my real hero. Now, I haven't actually opened this and looked at it yet, but this is the screen material from Carl's place, and it was $19, 110 inches. Don't need 110 inches, but I'll cut the excess. But we're back inside because I'm going to lay it down on this nice carpeted area anyways. I'd rather the screen not be on a hard concrete surface. And I'll lay the screen down, and then we're going to fold it over, cut what we don't need, and staple gun it. I held this up like I cut with this. I don't. This is actually a staple gun. You get one for like $8 or $9 at a Harbor Freight. If you don't have a Harbor Freight, Home Depot sells them for like $18. So let's start that part. If your screen comes a little bit folded up like this, it's probably best to let it rest. I didn't listen to Laura when she said I should let it rest, and I got a prompt "I told you so" later, as since I've done this video, I've already done some tightening on it to kind of get those wrinkles out. I went around and I cut the excess that I didn't need because the screen size that they had under their remnant section was 110 inches, which was just far more than I needed. I tried to cut it to fit, and like I said, instead of letting it rest, I moved right into trying to tighten it as best I could by taking the staple gun and going around the edges. Once I had it on there, I started at the bottom and I put a staple in to kind of hold the bottom down. And then I swapped to the opposite side and went to the top, where I tried to pull it as tight as possible and put a staple down. I did this going side to side, edge to edge, back and forth all the time until I had it on there. I'll save you a time-lapse video. Make sure you pull it as tight as you can to keep the wrinkles out. Went around the back and stapled. It was a lot of pulling tight and stapling again and pulling it tight and stapling again. It works great and it looks really good. I didn't really have a lot of problems with it, and I think that it's going to look awesome on the wall. One of the other things too is I'll be painting this one, but if you were just interested in the aspect of the wood, the screens, putting it together, doing it as cheaply as possible, this is where you stop. But we're going to go ahead and hang it up like this and take a look at it. The projector screen we just made at its bare bones configuration. That's just the screen over the frame we built, and I wanted to show you guys a little bit from the Brookstone. So let's go ahead and turn it on and take a look at some stuff. Also, we did an 80-inch screen with the thought that we're going to go to a bigger projector eventually. Here we go. Just looking at a couple things. Like, of course, if we had a bigger or a shorter throw distance in which needed to project on that 80 inches, I think we'd be absolutely fine with that. And a lot of people are not going to do something like an ultra short throw anyways, because there are imperfections in which I'll show you in just a moment, which have a lot to do with your ability to put the screen on, where I failed. Anyways, as you can see, we've got a near 80 inches. Now the actual Brookstone here is only projecting 76.5 inches on the screen, but if we wanted it to go 80 inches, we'd fill up pretty much all of that screen. The screen is actually made at 81.5 inches to account for about 1 inch of overshoot with the border itself that's going to go around the screen. Now, one place in particular I'm talking about, the only place I really noticed because I'm studying it really hard, I didn't pull it really tight enough up here, and you might see that there's a divot in the picture. That's what I'm talking about. If I would have pulled it a little bit tighter, and this is where I think that people that are doing this or any video that they watch, make sure you pull it as tight as possible. I'll need to take that down and tighten it so that I avoid this little divot, because while it's really not noticeable while you're watching it, it is obnoxious if you know that it's there and you see it all the time. The thing is, the overshoot border should cover that up anyways, but just in case, I'm going to probably just tighten it up a little bit better. So pretty much, again, excuse the bad audio, I don't have my good microphone on there. This is our 80-inch screen that we just made for about $26, depending on what tools you have or what parts you already have. Now, if you're interested in seeing a little bit more, where we paint it and do some extra stuff, stick around because we're about to do that as well. We're going to go ahead and paint the screen, we're going to put the border on it, and then if I can figure out a way to add the RGB to the back successfully, we'll cover that as well too, and I'll put some stuff down below.
Once you've procured a cute homeless woman to come paint the screen for you, you can get started painting. We used the Bare Silver Screen 770E2 mix with ultra pure white flat latex base. What we did is we used a small stain roller actually and very gingerly put it on there. It's going to take more than one coat to get it just right, but it takes a little bit of patience too in order to put all the paint on there. She used a very unique technique by the time we got to the end. She's not homeless, by the way. By the time we got to the end, to make sure that it was rolled on there well. Make sure you let it dry before you start critiquing your work too much. After that first coat dries, you can go back and find the spots under light that you want to see. The reason you want to do it under light is because, well, your projector projects light, and you want to go back and fix that kind of stuff right there.
I do want to say, if we're going to look at these color tests real quick, it's really hard, just like showing anything projector related, especially in videos, to kind of demonstrate to you the differences between. So if we're using the Carl's white screen with the black back material, I'll show you some of that first, and it's going to be kind of hard for you to see on a recording broadcast over YouTube, you watching it, to really differentiate the differences between the gray screen that we painted when we painted it with the bare paint and the actual just white screen by itself. Both look excellent, but in my opinion, the gray paint definitely made a world of difference. When you look at the white, you'll see that there's a lot more vibrant brightness coming at you. A lot of the colors have a lot more of a blue hue to them, and the best way I can articulate that is to look as close as you can at some of the menu stuff in the shield menu. You'll see that the blue bars below it, like where it says accessories, is going to look very different blue. Now once we painted it, the colors seem to pop more and they just have more definition to them. I don't know if that really makes sense, and it's again really hard to show in a video, but I hope that you can kind of see that difference. The gray paint added more contrast and vibrancy and allowed the colors to be more colorful. While I would show you putting on a felt border, I think that just wastes a lot of extra time. I'll put links down where you can get different felts, or if you wanted to go to your local store and get felt. But there are two main reasons for putting a border on a projector screen. The first reason being overshoot. And to say that or explain it a little bit better is that the borders will kind of absorb the light and sort of make it more of a squared, beautiful image. Now, it's not great to overshoot into the whole black area. You don't want to do that. But if you have to make minor keystone corrections, that black border should be able to line you up pretty well and make it look like one fluid continuous picture without too much overshoot. The second reason for having a black border, which is what makes it very important for a projector viewing experience, is the fact that it gives you that perceived detail of contrast. It'll make the contrast of the image itself just kind of pop to you more. Alright, so I'm in the bedroom now where the screen is. We got all the lights on, and what we're going to do is just check out a couple things real quick. So this is, for now, the final version. I will be adding a border to it, but not for the purpose sake of this video. But anyways, for a few extra bucks, if you want to make your projector screen a little extra awesome, that's what we're going to look at here. So now we're at the finale part for where we are now. Despite the fact that I'll be putting a border on this, we're going to check out what you can do that's just a little bit extra, a little bit fun, if it's something you're interested in. For between about $15 to up to $30, depending on the size of your screen, you can add a little fun extra that I did. Now, I'd like to have gone back and done it a little bit differently maybe, but we had a little ambient lighting and it's pretty nice. Pretty simple. Have a nice fade in and out, change the brightness, make it dim, make it bright, whatever you want to do. It's pretty fun and it's pretty cheap to do. Just wired it around the back. All I did was use the 3M sticky that's on it, put it on there, kind of fold it in a little bit, roll the corners, and when it's up against the wall, it's there and good to stay. Now, in case you're wondering how we hung it on the wall, it's actually pretty simple. We used triangle hanger hooks on either side, the left and the right, measured it and leveled it with a level. Highly recommend doing that. And then in the middle, have you ever seen like one of those metal poster frame things? Hopefully I'll post a picture of it so you know what I'm talking about, just to kind of brace it against the wall. And the only reason I did that was for the fact that it was an ultra short throw projector. So with it hanging on those two hooks, if it leans forward just a little bit, the ultra short throw picks it up and kind of makes like a little smiley face. That's all we did to hang it on top of that. So we put the lights around back, run the power to the power, voila. Now if you go with USB powered lights, make sure you have a USB source that can output that kind of power for it. So if we wanted to, we could have taken these and put them through the Brookstone. Anytime the Brookstone was turned on, the lights would come on. A lot of people don't like lights on their projector screen, but we're not here to really debate that or talk about it. We're just doing it because we can, and we like it. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much it. If you were wondering more about the border, we didn't do the border in this video. We're not doing that right now. I may go back and add that border to it later, or save the border for the next one we do. We will be doing a bigger projector screen with more quality wood, trying to make an actual just resting brace for it so that we can put it up on the wall and have it look good. For the bare bones minimum, if you wanted to spend about $26 to $28, you can get the wood, cheap hardware, and the Carl's Place screen material and start working. Now, it does depend on the tools you have, so if you don't have those tools readily available, you may just kind of be like, well, I don't have that, this isn't for me, I'm not a handyman. And I'm here to tell you, I'm not a handyman either. Trust me. But if I was able to do it, I'm sure you can.